Ooh, did that make a sound when it came in too? Ooh.
Ooh, what?
I
What just
know.
happened?
It's that live thing. Hello, everybody. How's it going? We made it live
Ish.
here, only 3 minutes late. Definitely not the latest we've ever been in doing this show.
Facts.
Science fact. Hey, Alina, I see that you're out there. Yeah. Welcome to Wine Antics Live. If you don't know who I am Jenn Nelson. I'm what I call a certified wine lover. I've taken some classes, I've drank a lot of wine, and it's all kosher for me. So tonight, before I introduce my co-host, we're talking about influence specifically in the beverage industry.
Mm-hmm.
Stub, how the hell you doing?
I'm doing all right. We're getting there. We're getting there, and life is good. So how about that?
Life is okay.
I
There's
you
wine.
know I feel like our lateness is mostly because of me and some technical issues here. So I apologize. But hey, thanks for joining us. As I say, thanks for joining us. As I'm guessing Jen is sharing this out uh, currently.
Oh, am I supposed to be doing that?
Well, while I'm talking, right? Isn't that how that works?
All right.
I
Here.
don't
There you go. Have a full screen, Stub.
know. Yeah. Hey, I'm here. What is Stub drinking tonight? He just pulled this out. Stub is drinking. It was the third bottle I pulled out. This is the Barrel House, aged in bourbon barrels for 3 months, 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon, as my father-in-law would say, from Barrel House Cellars in Santa Rosa. So I'm opening that now because, as you recall from our last live show, one of my resolutions was to drink more wine, because sometimes it's easy to get stumbled up in other things on occasion. And even as a wine guy, I don't open wine because people aren't drinking wine with me. And I feel guilty for opening an entire bottle to drink or taste by myself and then potentially waste. I know that sounds weird. So let's see what we got here. So this is a Cabernet from California, aged in bourbon barrels, which I've had a couple of those. I think this was a gift, Jen. Mm,
Does it mean it's
definitely.
time? Why is it? Does it mean it's time for me to come in and say hello?
No, yeah. Hopefully, I'm trying to stall a little bit for you here.
Well, I did share it to Facebook, and we haven't been on YouTube for very long. So anybody
Mm-hmm.
that is watching and catching us, if you give us a like here and a subscribe, and maybe hit the bell for notifications so you can know when we go live, because I get that all the time on Facebook, like, when are you going live? Well, guess what, that little bell will give you notifications when we're live. Not digging on
Mm-hmm.
anybody, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So you're drinking, you said a cab and a bourbon barrel aged cab.
Yeah,
To
bourbon
the
barrel aged cab. Yes,
I'm
which I
going to the
think was a
other end of the
gift
spectrum.
last year. If I recall correctly, it was a gift from a friend last year.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
going to
How
the other
about
end
you?
of the spectrum. I don't
Okay.
know. Do I need to be a YouTuber and like block out the light and do all there? You can see semi-dry Riesling 2017 from the Finger Lakes, from Fox Run Vineyards, from when I went up there for T-Bex. I
Nice.
know, right?
Excellent. I like it.
So, in the in the pre discussions of this, I was like, Stub, I'm not feeling really inspired,
Of course.
and and that happens from time to time. And I feel like,
It's
we just,
January. We're still getting back into the swing of things right now. Of course.
and I was like, you know what? It'll be all right because we can talk about this all freaking day, right?
We
It's
can.
influence this, and when I thought about this and pitching the idea to Stub, I was like, there's a lot of factors that influence either who's drinking what, or how they're buying, how people are buying wine, or what trends in the industry are influencing the way consumers perceive it, and us industry folks
Right.
feel about wine. So those are kind of the three things we're going to talk a little bit about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to drink some wine.
Of course we are, because it's a Tuesday that feels like a Monday.
It is a Tuesday that feels like a Monday.
Ooh,
We'll
this is
make it feel
literally
good.
the busiest week I've had, like as far as like deadlines and things I need to get back to in the last like 2 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy this week. And I know it is for you as well, Jen.
How are those resolutions going besides drinking more wine?
Um,
Oh,
I
there
did actually endeavor to open a bottle of wine last week that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I made myself the reading more I'd try to do. The writing more I've failed again already on. And I know we talked about that a couple days into the year. Um, but I try to catch up with that a little bit, just make some notes about things in my life and whatever. Once again, it's not writing a half a book every day. It's just writing more, some thoughts down, and getting into that habit more, as I know a lot of writers do. That's it. How about
Yeah.
yours, Jen? How are your resolutions going?
I'm actually not doing too bad. And if you
Good.
guys want to catch up on our resolutions, it was last 2 weeks ago, our show. So it's in the YouTube
Mhm.
playlist. It's also on Facebook. So catch up with what we actually said and how much we're actually lying to ourselves and maybe you guys a little too. I'm actually not doing too bad since this is the almost mid check-in in January, halfway to failing at all of our resolutions. I just wanted to do some exercises and I've been doing pretty well at that. And that is Sherry in the background. I have named my
Nice.
dogs after wine.
Of
That is
course you have.
Sherry participating.
Why wouldn't you?
Um, and so I've been actually doing well at a little bit of exercising and I'm drinking more wine and I'm starting some new projects that I'm going to talk a little bit about that you don't even know about, Stub. Towards the end of the show, when we get into what is influencing people into drinking wine. And Ben Johnson in the comments, thank you for joining us. Asked, where can you get cans of wine? You can get them in the grocery store now.
Yep. And
There's actually a
and
lot out.
and at your local supermarket probably as well.
Grocery
For
store.
cans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one you can't get there. This one I
Oh.
actually got at the winery in the Finger Lakes, but you can get quite a bit out there now.
Yeah, of course.
So why don't we kick it off with? I feel like I'm being so serious about this because
No.
it's such a joking but very serious topic for some people, and it pushes a
Yes.
lot of people's buttons. And I wanted to talk about how people or how influencers are really making trends happen.
Yes.
And when we talked about it in behind the scenes, I really wanted to talk about White Claw as
Yes.
a case study for how you can make a beverage go viral.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
2 words. Trevor Wallace. He is the skinny white kid who has done the videos like first ever this or only ever this. And he, best I could tell researching this, Jen, was the guy who kind of started the like first guy to drink White Claw ever. So he's the guy's like first guy who stayed in your hometown and didn't make anything of himself, or used to be the high school quarterback, blah blah blah. And he's a big guy on YouTube, and that's what I know. It's not the first. I know there was a lot of memes, but for me researching, that's the first guy who made the White Claws kind of the drink of the summer last year.
So our disgust has a name.
A little bit, yes. Trevor Wallace.
I
Although
like how your reaction was like, I wouldn't say disgust,
no, the
but
fun fact is that guy Trevor Wallace is actually hilarious.
oh, is
Um,
he?
yeah, he does some great. If you stumble upon him, especially if you're a person of a certain age, you're like, "Who is this douche doing these videos?" But then you watch a couple, and you're like, "Oh, he's in on the joke," and it works out. But Jen, we mentioned White Claw as this kind of like influence marketing thing. And they're running out of White Claw towards the end of summer, and it was a tragedy, right? Like this thing took on a life of its own for White Claw specifically, but more specifically for hard seltzers last summer.
I agree, and I mean my aunt and uncle are not of my generation.
No,
They're
they would
like in their 50s,
sure.
and they were the one who gave me my first White Claw because they
Hmm.
had it sitting. They're out. We live in Florida, and they're out by the pool. It's low alcohol, very low burn or aftertaste. It's just easy freaking drinking. And I mean, I
Hmm.
got suckered in when I tasted. I'm like, I understand a little bit. I'm not saying I'm not going to get a hangover in the morning from it, but I understand the appeal of it. And I don't even know if I would have tried it had it not been so viral, right? And got so many people behind it. Because the last hard seltzer I think I remember was somewhere in the vein of Zima, and that was overly sweet, so I don't even know if we
That's
can count
close
that.
enough. So the weird thing is, like even White Claw is still basically the same thing as Zima as far as the way it's made. It's a malt beverage, around 5% alcohol, and we can say this. We're going to say White Claw for all of the seltzers on the market now, around 5-ish% alcohol. They're a little more crisp, but they're less heavy than beer. They're fun. They feel okay to drink when it's super hot. They're not heavy. Um, but White Claw truly, like any of the people, even John Taffer has his own seltzer, which is actually not a malt beverage. That's actually a orange wine based seltzer that he does. But all of these quote unquote hard seltzers are have benefited from the there ain't no laws when you're drinking White Claws, regardless of the brand. And they didn't really that I know of. And anyone watching, comment please.
There ain't
Um,
no law. I'm sorry, I'm still back in. There ain't no laws when you're drinking White Claw. I
there
mean,
ain't no laws
that
when you're drinking claws. That was
that
the
just
meme of last summer.
was
Like
was
that
that
was
their
the meme of last summer, just like Old Town Road was a song of last summer,
Oh my
which
god.
are both terrible. However, what we get out of that is this, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. Like everyone's talking about them. Everyone grabs a 12 pack for the pool. And you're like, oh, a 6 pack for $8. No, I can get a 15 pack for $12, and then you get a 15 pack, so you get all the flavors. And before you know it, White Claw or any other hard seltzer brands are the thing of the summer last year, to the
And
point that they were running out of them.
yeah, no, I get it. And I think you made a very good point of why. Canned wine, right? Why products that have diversity to it. Like I can
Mhm.
get a mixed variety. I can get four different flavors instead of buying one bottle of white wine that I'm not sure if it's worth the price or if it's tasty or if my friends will like it. I mean,
Sure.
you get variety and like you're not hurt about it because it doesn't have a huge strong flavor aftertaste. It's just easy and it gives you
Yeah.
like permission to enjoy the beverage.
Yeah. And we'll get to more of why that's that particular like kind of different category is important towards the end of our show here. Um, but yeah, so Jen, we've got people talking about things for curiosity because once again, you get, a 12 pack for 15 or less bucks for something new that everybody loves. That's not completely out of price category for people. But then let's get into the reasons that people will buy or not buy things because of price. And now
Okay.
we're talking more, we're getting into pricing, and then maybe as we talk a little more into the specific wine tariffs that are uh, specifically maybe about to happen.
Okay. Can we also throw in there aesthetics as well?
Well, I mean that's a whole other thing next, but whatever. Yeah, we can do
I mean,
whatever.
if you're talking the two top things that people really care about when they're buying wine, right?
Hmm.
It's and don't lie because I do it
Hmm.
too, right? Like
Yeah,
it's the look of the bottle. whether you're looking at it from a very, hey, it's attractive and it relates to me, or hey, it's got a certain pedigree and I think
Yeah.
it's worth the value, you look at the label.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is, of course, price.
So I will say, Jen, the last 3 days being out and about in local watering holes, I asked to look at all of the bottles of wine they had, specifically wine. And 95% of wine labels are pretty much the same. They're white labels with some chalkish black and white drawing of the tasting room or the winery with some trees around
Yeah.
it, and they don't pop from the shelf.
No.
Now that said, the other category of wine labels, and this was not in my local watering holes, are wine labels with animals on them. So I always, if I've not had a wine before, I will 1000% always shy away from a bottle with an animal on the label.
What did Yellowtail do to you?
Oh, hmm,
Apparently, Yellowtail done you wrong.
that is. But it's not just yellowtail. It's a dog. It's a cat.
I know.
It's a bear. It's a whatever. Um, I find a lot of times that in the new in 21st century, a lot of especially wine marketers and label wise, they want to stick to tradition, which I, as a wine guy, completely respect because I want to see the same label, maybe a little change every 3 years on a bottle, especially a bottle I'm paying a lot of money for, right?
Yeah.
But what I found is it's just very stale for the most part. Now you've got labels like Freak Show
Yeah.
label, if we've ever seen those,
And
or things like
chronic.
that, and Chronic that
Mm-hmm.
pop off the shelf. They have bright colors, they have this. But if you don't have the black and white chalk drawing or the animals, what you get is what looks like a watercolor painting
It's true.
done by your grandmother in her later years before she passed in the nursing home. Like it's just it's very and and I know people criticize the wine community for this a lot, being kind of stale a little bit. And I think it's something we who are really into wine, should challenge a little bit, but also
Yes.
we should challenge in the way of saying, hey, this is tradition, and the tradition of a staid label should maybe be counteracted with maybe a little bit more pop on the personal marketing side.
What do you mean on the personal marketing side?
Well, like when people are doing tastings or whatever, like the influence of that. Because what
Yeah.
we have now is we have a younger generation, they're like, oh, cool. Here's a chalk drawing of a dog, or here's a chalk drawing of the winery. Who cares? Right? Like there's nothing to engage them. And, we're sitting now, and I just read today, I believe in the Wall Street Journal, that, wine has actually had a decrease in
Drop.
sales for the
Mm-hmm.
first time in like 20 plus
25
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Wine sales are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
I read an article in Golf Magazine actually a couple of days ago with John Taffer of Bar Rescue, who's a well-known bar manager and consultant who has said that beer is on the outs now. Even the craft beer movement is on the outs because seltzer is coming up and bourbon is moving up, specifically spirits, but specifically bourbon. So
Really?
when you get to this labeling thing, how are we enticing people who aren't going into small shops and doing things and just looking at stuff on the shelf? And they're looking at two things. They're looking at label and price.
And this is a
And
great time for me to segue into how. Because this is
do it.
actually perfect for something that Stub doesn't know and how everybody else is doing, or everybody else does or doesn't know. I got a great compliment from Anna, liking the look that I've been doing, and
Mm,
that's kind of connected with what I'm doing with Justin Cowrie's
mhm,
wife,
mhm,
Lauren.
mhm,
She's a lawyer in the real life, but Justin is an avid whiskey lover as well as part of
mhm,
our tribe in the wine community. And I wanted to find a way to bring her into the fold and have her place. And she's really been big on makeup, right?
mhm,
And I was like, all right, well, looking at, we know, you and I and anybody in the industry knows that label is one of the huge factors. You
Hmm.
do have there is something to be said with the traditional, seeing a chateau on the label, seeing those sketches, seeing a print, because that is synonymous with tradition and with what we expect. But there's a lot of amazing labels out there that are beautiful. So, Lauren and I are creating looks inspired by beautiful wine labels.
Hmm.
And we think it's a great way to pay homage to how people shop. And then for me, it's to teach me a little bit more and have fun with, being an artist on my face.
Hmm.
And for her as well. And introduce people and talk about wine in a way that relates to how people are buying it, not by how we as an industry of bloggers tend to talk about wine,
Sure.
which is, and so I think I love the fact that buyers are open to trying wines that aren't very traditional, and I just want to embrace that.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. And as as a guy who started in the beverage industry, writing and whatnot about wine specifically, like I appreciate the tradition. And I have been lucky enough to have been able to taste some older wines, some more traditional wines. Um, but I also, once again, the wine industry's dropping. The craft beverage and the craft beer industry is even dropping at this point because of seltzers. And there's got to be a competition there. And I think there's a way, as you said, Jen, even kind of artistically to change that a little bit, maybe even with what the looks are on the shelf to get people to buy things.
Or there's just, I think about this with a lot of things. When any market becomes oversaturated, then there's too much choice for the consumer. So the ones
Yeah.
that stand out, the ones that have been there the longest, rise to the top. And I, they do have to find some way to diversify or to make themselves unique, but they have to find a way to attract a whatever their target market is. And sometimes that's not just on the label. That's how the community, whoever their target
Yes.
market, perceives them. I mean,
Yes.
getting in for White Claw to do memes and
Hmm.
have people talking about it. And we don't know. I mean, there could have been some sponsored ads or some sponsored influencer marketing to push this.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read about the White Claw thing, this was really a viral thing that they weren't in charge of. Now, they may have encouraged it after the fact, and I haven't been able to find quote unquote data about that. Um, but the whole summer of White Claw, and then we get into also the Natter Days, the natural light strawberry lemonade flavor. That was a big deal last year as well. That was also kind of a viral thing, best I could tell. Now, I think Natty Light probably played a little more into that than White Claw did, but it looked like White Claw got a little caught with their pants down for their popularity. I'll be curious to see if White Claw specifically does as well this summer, or if another brand, if Truly kind of bumps a little bit more in the market. But I think seltzers are a great. Um, I'm not gonna say great. I've not had one that has blown me away. I've had some that I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm sitting by the pool or by the beach, and I've had those last year. But I don't know that they're great quality craft beverages, which then kind of brings me into Jen, the demographic of marketing and influencing here. We titled this "Influence This," and it was maybe a little bit of a tease of like, oh, Instagram, YouTube, whatever influencers, and those are big deals. And I know we mentioned Trevor Wallace, or I did at the top of the show, but also, there's traditional influence as well. I mean, back in the day, Landau Calrissian was hawking some malt liquor on the TV, and that was a big deal, right? So we've got traditional celebrities who, of their own right, are popular, and then they loan their influence to a brand. But then we also have people who, because we take pretty photos or do great videos or have a, sugar mama to take us all over the place and drink great things, take great photos or pretend to take great photos to hawk a brand. And that's kind of where we are now. So now we're looking at a demographic thing. We've got young versus old, we've got metropolitan versus suburban or rural, and all these different demographics. So how do we look at that, Jen, or what do you think? How do we look at that in the beverage industry moving forward for marketing different either traditional beverages or new entrees into the market?
So, do you mean by pulling in people that have clout already and like celebrity endorsement per
Yeah,
se?
because it's a different demographic. Like once again, celebrity endorsement of things is has been around forever,
Yeah.
right? Like celebrities endorsing cigarettes or liquor or beer brands or soft drink brands. I mean, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did Pepsi, and
Pepsi.
George
Yeah.
George Michael did Diet Coke commercials for a while back
Oh,
in
I
the
love those
80s.
commercials.
So you look at those, and also let's pour one out for Alfonso Ribera, who died doing the headspin during a Pepsi commercial
Oh my goodness.
back in the 80s. He really didn't, because now he's hosting America's Funniest Home Videos. That was a lie, friends. But you get these things that happens. So you have the traditional, let's get a celebrity endorsement, and now you have people becoming celebrities because they're endorsing things. And that's a really weird thing. Do we give enough clout? Like, did we give George Michael or Michael Jackson enough credit back in the 80s to endorse Pepsi or Diet Coke as we do, um, you know, wine drinker XYZ today, who is, has however many thousands of Instagram followers saying, Yellowtail's the best Shiraz in the history of the world? How do we discern those two things in the 21st century?
Mm. Sales.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the great equalizer, isn't it? From an industry perspective.
it is, but then I think our other question and deeper, and we're not going to get into this because we're getting close to the end of the show. I agree with the sales. I agree with the reactions, and I know there's metrics to gauge influence online, but I think actually, Jen, I think we were trying to shine a light on kind of like what influences the industry, and a lot of it is money. White Claw,
Yeah,
independent
a
brands.
lot of it.
There's other seltzers who are backed by large beverage companies. Otherwise, AB. Um, but we get these things like this, and wines backed by other wines and spirits backed by other large brands. um, and
You're not
it's
being clear enough in your coughs.
it's difficult for us sometimes to understand, like, where's this coming from and who's influencing us. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting topic that we can talk more about. I would love this conversation to continue on our comments here,
Oh
and
yeah,
maybe
there's
even in our
actually
after party.
yeah, in the after party or in the comments, there's actually a lot of comments. And Anna actually asked something that I didn't know. I don't know that much about. If we see the decline in wine sales, wine consumption, is that a barometer for the rest of the other beverages? I mean, you did mention that bourbon is up, beer is down.
Yes.
I feel like I'm talking about futures and stock portfolios, but um, I don't honestly know that. And Justin's in the comments, so Justin, put the question out to you too. Is the trends downward for wine consumption, wine purchasing, money for wine a barometer for the rest of the beverage
Well, it
industries?
isn't. And for years, obviously, Jen and you and I have been at conferences that have discussed this. I mean, for the last like 4 years, every conference we've been to for wine and beer has discussed the effect of legalized cannabis on the industry. And there's another entree into it. But then we have the sober curious movement. Like we have, like beverages are such a large uh, and expensive
Yeah.
part of our daily lives. And I say expensive because you look at your morning coffee. If you don't make your coffee at home, you're spending a lot of money for a cup of coffee in the drive-through on the way to work every day. And we are willing to spend money on beverages in our life. You look at bottled water. I mean, just the fact that bottled water has become a thing over the last, and that's been 30, 20 to 30 years, but it's crazy. Um, all right, but all right. Justin says down maybe a percentage. Um, but look,
And it's not about the actual number, right? It's about the fact
right,
that we're talking about wine tariffs.
right.
We're talking about the a very tumultuous political climate that we're living in, no matter what side of the fence you're on.
Yeah.
We have fires raging in California and Australia,
Yep.
and then when you absorb all of these things, kind of, directly impacting the wine industry, or going around the wine industry, hurting futures of
Yeah.
wine, you start to look at it and think about how bad it can be. So less than
Yeah.
1%, and then hearing all the things that are going on in the world, you start to think a little bit worse about it.
Yeah. So Justin's saying luxury brands were up as a whole. That is true. And sales on the whole were up as a true. But sales on the lower end of wine, which is more people drink wine specifically, have been down for the last couple of years, which is a big thing. The craft beer movement has, we think of that as still being awesome. That is also moving down a little bit here recently. We've got the seltzer, the cider movement as well. Cider's always been there, but it's always been kind of the redheaded stepchild of the quote unquote beer world, or I guess wine,
So
beer
is
and or
rosé,
wine
but look
world.
at the Yes Way rosé movement and how that
And
completely
that's been
changed.
like 5 years.
Yeah.
And on it, Anna just brought up like tequila. Tequila, I think is I project that tequila is going to be kind of the rising spirit over the next year.
And why do
We've
why do a lot of people think about that? Be honest. I mean, it's not because, well, margaritas are amazing, but because there were diets that were advocating drinking tequila because of the
Yes.
lowest amount of sugar in there.
Yes.
And
And then
who is
we
the major
yes.
drinkers?
And we
Women.
also have, the bourbon movement over the last couple of years. We've driven bourbon prices up for even Pappy Van Winkle, who everyone knows is quote unquote the high-end luxury brand. Like the entry level of that bottle should cost you $60 to $70, and people are paying $300+ for that bottle.
No.
So we have this weird, we don't want to spend a lot. We want to have a little bit of a lower end thing, and then we end up getting into uh, exclusivity as well, which I think is diametrically opposed to what's happening in the world right now. Jen, we've done a good job here tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We
The
can
question that
actually
Ben
talk for another hour, but
Well, yeah, let's answer Ben's question, and we may have to come back to tariffs a little bit later because we haven't gotten a chance to talk about tariffs, but we're kind of at that 34 minute mark because we can be chatty Cathy's about this.
of course.
Is there a bigger influencer than The Rock? I would say Will Smith.
Mm,
I mean, we can
Triple
go to the
H.
Kardashians. Like, if you want to like jump up,
Triple H. I don't know. I mean,
Triple H.
no. No, and that's the other thing as well. And that's kind of what we just kind of wanted to do, a primer on this, and you know, get going. And yeah, that's kind of what we've done. Just
There's a
kind of hit
lot
on some
going on in the
topics.
wine industry. There's a lot
Yeah.
that's influencing beverages right now, and we could probably do an entire show about the tariffs. But like let's just do a real quick initial thoughts on it. I've heard a lot of nasty things about it, and
Mhm.
if you want to gauge how people are concerned about it in the beverage industry, from what I've seen in my feeds and people talking about it, they're very concerned. Not I mean, I think some of it's a little bit selfish. Like, if French wine goes up to goes from like a 20% tariff to 100% tariff, they're not going to get their favorite beverages. And I've
Sure.
even seen people talking more about buying certain vintages or
Hmm.
buying certain types of wine now in preparation of the
Yes.
tariffs. So there's a little bit of the scare going around the industry that this is coming to fruition.
Yes.
Personally, I'm kind of excited. I don't want tariffs, but I'm kind of
Hmm.
excited because it means that maybe we'll drink more domestically.
So, Jen, there's part of me that will agree with you. Like, yes, if there are higher tariffs on uh, European wines, yes, more domestic wines will come to fruition. And I actually, in preparation for the show, and I read this like 5 years ago, like if wine consumption increased by like 2% in the country, we would run out of wine. And I don't, once again, I heard that. I was trying to find it. I couldn't. So I'm not going to stick behind that. So, yeah, I guess the overall thing would be, yeah, maybe we'll sell more US wines. However, what we get in that in a business sense, and I have not, I have, I will say I've done my due diligence as a citizen and as a person into and related to the industry. I have sent my thoughts to people who matter. However, I've not commented online about this, but here's what I'll say. Yes, could it perhaps benefit domestic producers? And I think that's yes. I think what we also get, though, is that it will hurt a lot of small businesses because we have a lot of small importers and or distributors uh, in the country who rely on that and rely on the imports. And when you get to a point also of, uh, this wine cost, you could get this great Bordeaux for $24, and now it's not a one for one, by the way, on the 100% tariff. Like it's not going to be
Yeah.
double the price retail. But if I could
They're
spend
using that language
$24,
though. If your prosecco goes from $11 to $30.
yeah, and I don't look, and in some cases that will be the case. I'm not once again, there's we get to the superlative on both sides of the argument. I think down the middle though, what's going to happen is people who are bringing in their business depends on imports, they're going to hurt and they're going to lay
Yeah.
people off. And there's going to be less um availability of European wines. And I will say, I'm a proponent for both domestic and foreign wines, by the way. But as someone who wants to and who's made my kind of career and uh, vision on teaching people about wines and this varietal here and this varietal here as an educator, I think what it's going to do is it's going to lock out a bunch of people. Um, why it's happening, I won't comment on. Um, uh, the effects of it, I will comment on, and I think it's going to hurt a lot of people in our industry and a lot of our friends. And I do feel badly about that. I also think, though, that it could potentially help some of our friends in the industry as well. And once again, I've privately made my thoughts known to people who matter on that, but uh, I don't I don't know how to go. I don't really know. It's good and it's bad. And I know friends who would be severely hurt on that. And I know friends who would potentially benefit a little bit. I think the cons outweigh the pros personally, but once again, it's also attached to something that has nothing to do with the beverage industry. So I don't want to speak on it.
It's very much
There's
true.
me being a diplomat.
You are. Your wife is rubbing
Mm,
off on you.
no, no, my wife is way less of a diplomat than I am.
Yeah. All right. um yeah, I haven't honestly, like, I've read enough of what people are writing about in the industry because lots of people, bloggers and writers
Hmm.
are in our circle of friends are talking
Hmm.
about it. I've
Yep.
read that. I've heard the scares. I've looked at the trends of people, and it looks like Stub has left the building. So, you know what? I will just go ahead and close the show out. It's not a cut or dry answer, right? It is tied up with political misgivings or slants, whatever. I think I try to look at the positives of some of it, and if that drives people to drink more local, I think that's a positive thing. But of course, importers are going to suffer from that just because their whole livelihood, unfortunately, is based on making margins in and profits in there. So I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to make sure I drop the after party link right here. And also encourage you guys not only again to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because as Justin said to me earlier today, when are you guys going live? Well, it's going to give you an email notification for that. Plus, it's in Facebook. I've put up an event on the Wine Antics page that talks about all of our dates. I haven't really talked about the content because sometimes, I want to keep it secret. Sometimes I, want to surprise you guys. Like, it's just good, all American fun to hold information and tease you guys. So definitely go over to Wine Antics on Facebook, check out the event so you know when we are going live. And most of this today is because I'm in class on Thursday nights, so I gotta be there. I can't be here with you beautiful people and enjoy the after party that's going to happen right after this. But stay tuned. Tuesday nights live here on YouTube throughout not only January and February, but we are going to make sure that everybody has content every Thursday. So we're going to take this content, we're going to slice and dice it a little bit and put it out on Facebook on Thursday. But you don't get to participate, you don't get to hang out, you don't get to talk to Justin and Anna and Ben. So thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure to join us in the after party. Appreciate you guys being here, and hope to see you guys in a little bit. For those of you, cannot ignore this, that are still here, still like watching the replay, come and join us over on Facebook or email us. I'm at wineantics@gmail.com. We're pretty normal people, and we just like to talk about wine and drink some wine. That's the whole premise of this. All right, guys, have a good night. I'll see you later.